After my stroke rehab, my son took my truck. He stood in my driveway, holding my keys, and said, "Dad, you're not safe anymore." I wanted to argue, but my right hand still shook when I buttoned my shirt. So I let him take it. Days later, my insurance bill exploded. That was how I ended up sitting across from an insurance agent, watching her face change as she opened my file. She turned the screen toward me and asked, "Did you authorize business use on your truck?" I looked at my son. He looked at the floor. Then she clicked another tab. My signature. His business. A warehouse claim. And a paper trail he never thought I would see. Welcome to Final Act Revenge. Tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is where you are. Please take care of your health while you listen. Because my son did not just take my truck after rehab. He tried to put my independence in writing and sign my name under it. My name is Pablo Sanchez. I am 68 years old, and I have lived in Atlanta long enough to know that the city does not wake up quietly. It wakes up with trucks backing into loading docks, buses sighing at red lights, church vans turning corners too wide, and men like I used to be drinking gas station coffee before the sun can decide whether it wants to be kind. For 35 years, I worked in medical equipment distribution. I was not a doctor. I never wore a white coat. Nobody called me a specialist, unless a hospital bed got stuck halfway through a narrow hallway, and someone needed a man who knew how to tilt, lift, curse softly, and not scratch the wall. I delivered walkers, oxygen tanks, shower chairs, wheelchairs, hospital beds, wound care supplies, and rehab equipment all across Atlanta. Decatur, Marietta, College Park, Chamblee, Gwinnett. Little houses with cracked driveways, apartments where the elevator smelled like old rain, porches where daughters cried before opening the door because they did not want their mothers to see them scared. You learn things doing that kind of work. You learn that pride does not disappear when a person gets sick. It just gets quieter. A doctor may tell you how to heal, but sometimes a walker is what lets you reach the bathroom without begging. That is not a small thing. My truck understood that life better than most people did. It was a dark blue 2009 Ford F-150 with a cracked left taillight, a dent near the rear bumper, and a driver's seat shaped by 15 years of my back. It was not beautiful, but it started in bad weather. It carried heavy things without complaining. And it had been with me through more hard mornings than some family members. Rosa used to say I loved that truck because it never asked me to explain myself. She was my wife, Rosa Sanchez. She had a laugh that could cut through a bad day like sunlight through blinds, and a way of correcting me that made me thank her before I realized I had been corrected. The year I bought the truck, she gave me a small red Medical Cross keychain. She clipped it onto my keys and said, "Since you spend your life carrying help to people, at least let your keys look official." I told her it looked cheap. She said, "So do you, but I kept you." That was Rosa. Soft hands, sharp tongue. Best woman I ever knew. She also gave me the sentence I did not understand fully until after my stroke. "Help is when someone holds your arm," she told me once. "Control is when they decide where you're allowed to walk." Back then, I thought she was talking about other families. I should have listened harder. Our son, Jonah, grew up around delivery schedules, inventory sheets, and dinner conversations interrupted by emergency oxygen orders. He was smart, too smart sometimes. The kind of boy who could sell you your own watch and make you feel lucky to pay for it. As a man, he started a small business called Peachtree Rehab Resale, refurbished equipment, used hospital beds, wheelchair parts, things people needed but could not always afford new. Part of me was proud, part of me worried. In 2026, everything cost more. Insurance, warehouse rent, delivery fuel, replacement parts. Even used medical equipment had become a battlefield of invoices and late payments. Jonah carried pressure like a coat he refused to take off. I saw that. I just did not know how much of that pressure he was about to lay across my chest. After my stroke, I was not the same man right away. Let me be honest. My right hand shook, My words sometimes arrived late. Buttons became enemies. A curb looked taller than it used to, and the first time I dropped a spoon at breakfast, I stared at it on the floor like it had betrayed me personally. I did not want to drive wild through Atlanta traffic like nothing had happened. I am old, not stupid. I only wanted a fair chance to earn back what I could. A driving evaluation, a process, a professional answer, not a verdict handed down by my son in the driveway while he held my keys. Because those keys were not proof I could drive anywhere I wanted. They were proof I still had the right to decide where I was going. I thought Jonah was afraid I might hurt myself on the road. I did not know he was already using that fear to drive my life without me. The stroke came on an ordinary morning. That was the cruel part. No thunder, no warning music. Just a glass of water slipping from my hand and breaking across the kitchen floor, like my body had decided to quit without asking me first. I remember trying to call Jonah. The words came out wrong. Not completely gone, just bent. Beverly Knox, my neighbor, heard the glass because her kitchen window faced mine. Beverly was 70, retired from a school cafeteria, and nosy in the way God sometimes uses to save a man's life. She found me gripping the counter. "Pablo," she said, "smile at me." I tried. Only half my face listened. She called 911 before I could argue. Jonah arrived at the hospital with his shirt buttoned wrong and fear all over his face. I saw that. I will not pretend he did not love me in that moment. He held my left hand and said, "Dad, I'm here." I believed him. Rehab started 2 weeks later. People think recovery is one big victory, like standing up in a movie while everyone claps. It is not. Recovery is a plastic cup with your name on it, a rubber ball you squeeze until your fingers ache, a therapist asking you to touch your thumb to each finger while you feel like a child borrowing an old man's hand. That was where I met Wesley Grant. Wesley was my occupational therapist, and he had the calm cruelty of a man who knew kindness without discipline is just decoration. He did not baby me. I respected that. The first day, I dropped a pen 3 times trying to write my name. I cursed under my breath. Wesley slid the pen back to me and said, "Good. Now your hand knows we are not done." I hated him for 5 seconds. Then I liked him. We worked on buttons, grip strength, balance, reaction time, turning my head left and right without losing my place in the room. One afternoon, he had me sit in a mock driver's seat and check mirrors. My chest tightened so hard I had to pretend I was coughing. Wesley noticed. "Miss the road?" he asked. I missed not asking permission to go buy toothpaste. He nodded like that was a medical answer. Then we worked toward the next safe step. Not the old life, the next safe step. That mattered. Beverly drove me to the pharmacy after I came home. I apologized 3 times before we reached the main road. She finally said, "Men get proud about asking for rides. Women just call it Tuesday." I laughed. Then I looked out the window and saw a truck like mine at a stoplight. Same dark blue, same shape, not mine. Still, my hand moved toward keys that were not in my pocket. That is when I understood how small freedom can get. A person can have food in the fridge, a bed at home, a son who calls, and still feel trapped because every errand has to be negotiated. Jonah came by often. At first, it helped. He checked the pill organizer, changed light bulbs, drove me to appointments. He told Mina I was doing better, and when she visited, she hugged me like she was afraid I might break. "Grandpa," she whispered, "Dad says you have to be careful." I do. He says you get confused when you're tired. That one hurt, not because it was impossible, because it was easy for people to believe. After stroke, every pause becomes evidence. Every forgotten word becomes a verdict. I told her, "Tired is not the same as gone." She nodded, but I could see Jonah had already planted something in her. Near the end of rehab, Wesley sat with me and went over my discharge plan. "You are not cleared to drive freely," he said. "I know. But your cognition is intact. Your reaction time is improving. You are eligible to begin a formal adaptive driving evaluation. I looked at him. So, I'm not finished. No, Wesley said. You are not finished. But you do not skip the process. That was all I wanted. A process. A fair answer. Not pity wearing a seatbelt. Because Jonah was helping with appointment emails, I had signed a limited medical release. It allowed him to coordinate therapy information and schedules. Nothing more. I did not know then that one piece of paper could become a door if the wrong person leaned on it hard enough. That evening, Jonah came to the house. He stood in the driveway beside my F-150, holding out his hand. Keys, Dad. I looked at him. For what? Just for a few weeks, until we know more. I know enough to know I'm not driving yet. Good. Then you don't need them. His voice was calm. Too calm. The red Medical Cross keychain Rosa gave me swung from my fingers. Jonah saw me looking at it. Dad, don't make this sentimental. I felt something rise in me. I'm not making it anything. You had a stroke, he said. Stop acting like keys are proof you're still a man. The driveway went quiet. I wanted to hit him with the words I could not take back. Instead, I handed him the keys, not because he was right, because part of me was still afraid he might be. He closed his fist around Rosa's keychain and said, I'm doing this because I love you. Then he drove my truck away. Jonah said he was taking the truck because he loved me, but love does not usually hide the keys before the doctor's note reaches the kitchen table. The next morning, my driveway looked wrong. That is a small sentence. But after a stroke, small things carry weight. The place where my truck had always sat was empty. No dark blue hood catching the early sun. No cracked left tail light. No dent near the bumper that Rosa used to call evidence of male confidence. Just bare concrete. I stood at the kitchen window with my coffee cooling in my hand and told myself, it's temporary. Temporary is a dangerous word. It can comfort a man for a week, then quietly become a new life. Jonah called that afternoon. Did you take your pills? Yes. Did you eat? Yes. Don't go walking alone, Dad. I walked to the mailbox. You don't need to push it. His voice sounded caring. Maybe it was, but care has a certain rhythm when it still respects you. Jonah's care had begun to sound like instructions being read from a clipboard. A few days later, I needed to pick up a prescription. Normally, I would have grabbed my keys, stepped into the heat, and driven 3 miles without thinking. Instead, I called Beverly Knox. She answered on the second ring. You need a ride, don't you? I hate that you knew. Pablo, men get proud about asking for rides. Women just call it Tuesday. She pulled up 20 minutes later in a white sedan with a rosary hanging from the mirror and peppermint wrappers in the cup holder. I thanked her 3 times. She waved me off. But when we passed a truck that looked like mine near a traffic light, my chest tightened before my mind could correct it. Not mine, not mine, not mine. That became the quiet punishment. Every errand reminded me. Pharmacy, grocery store, rehab follow-up, church parking lot. I was not trapped in a hospital bed. I had food, a phone, neighbors, and a son who claimed he was helping. But every trip had to pass through someone else's schedule first. That is how independence leaves sometimes. Not with a slammed door, with a ride you have to ask for. Mina visited on Sunday. She brought cookies from some bakery Jonah liked and sat at my kitchen table, picking crumbs from the napkin instead of looking at me. How's school? I asked. Fine. You studying for finals? Kind of. She looked toward the empty driveway, then back at me. Grandpa, are you mad Dad is helping you? I put my coffee down. I'm not mad at help, Mina. She nodded too quickly. I could see Jonah's words sitting behind her eyes. I'm trying to understand when help stopped asking me questions, I said. She did not know what to do with that. 16 is old enough to feel tension, but not always old enough to name it. Dad says you get confused when you're tired, she whispered. There it was. Not cruel, worse, repeated. I smiled because she looked scared she had hurt me. Tired is not the same as gone. Her eyes filled a little. I know, but I was not sure she did. A week passed, then another. Jonah kept saying the truck was safe. At my place, he told me. Battery's fine. I started every few days. You don't need it yet. Every sentence had a lock hidden inside it. Then Gloria Ruiz called. Gloria had run routes with me years ago, back when half our deliveries were made with paper maps and stubbornness. She had a voice like gravel and honey, and she never called unless there was something worth saying. Pablo, she said, either you're back on deliveries, or someone is using your life like a company asset. I sat up slowly. What are you talking about? I saw your F-150 near Chambly. Could be another truck. With your cracked left tail light? The kitchen went still. I looked through the window at the empty driveway. Where, exactly? Near a warehouse off the access road. There were equipment boxes in the bed. For a few seconds, I heard my own breathing. Slow, careful. The way Wesley had taught me when my body started turning fear into weather. I called Jonah. He answered like he was already busy. Hey, Dad, everything okay? Where is my truck? A pause. At my place, I told you. In Chambly? Another pause. Too long. Then his voice changed. Who told you that? Gloria saw it. Dad, don't start chasing stories. You're recovering. There it was again. Recovering. The word that could turn any question into a symptom. I asked where my truck is. And I answered, it's safe. Safe. I looked at Rosa's old photo on the refrigerator. Her eyes seemed to know what I did not want to admit. A few days later, the insurance bill came. I opened it at the kitchen table. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Numbers had felt less friendly since the stroke, so I read it again. Then again. The premium had jumped so sharply that I checked the name twice to make sure it was mine. It was. Pablo Sanchez. My truck. My policy. My VIN number. And a price that made no sense for a vehicle I had not driven once since rehab. My right hand shook. Not from the stroke this time. From anger finding its way back into my body. When the insurance bill arrived, I finally understood something was moving faster than my recovery. And it had my truck's VIN number on it. I called Martha Keene the next morning. Martha had handled my insurance longer than some people stay married. She knew my truck before it had dents. She knew Rosa's name. She knew I never missed a payment unless the bank made the mistake first. And even then, she used to say, Pablo, you argue with billing departments like a man who thinks paper has feelings. When she answered, I heard her keyboard clicking in the background. Keene Insurance. This is Martha. It's Pablo Sanchez. The clicking stopped. Pablo, how are you feeling? That question had become tricky after the stroke. People asked it with two meanings now. One was about my body. The other was about whether they could still trust my mind. I'm feeling expensive, I said. She laughed once. That sounds like a bill. It is. My auto premium jumped. For the F-150? Yes. Give me a second. I heard typing, then silence. Not a normal silence, a professional silence. The kind people use when they see something wrong and do not want to scare you before they understand it. Martha? Pablo, did you add commercial use to the truck? I sat straighter. Commercial use? Another pause. Can you come to my office? That was when my stomach knew before my head did. Jonah insisted on driving me. I did not ask him. He called just after breakfast and said, Dad, you don't need to handle insurance alone right now. I looked at the phone for a moment before answering. I handled oxygen delivery routes before you had a learner's permit. He gave a short laugh, not a warm one. Insurance is different. So am I, apparently. He arrived in his SUV 20 minutes later, clean shirt, tight jaw, phone buzzing in the cup holder. On the way to Decatur, he talked too much. That is how you know when a man is trying to outrun a question. He told me premiums were up everywhere. He told me older vehicles had weird rating changes. He told me my stroke might have triggered a review. He told me Martha was old school and probably confused by system updates. I watched Atlanta pass outside the window. Road crews, fast food signs, people carrying groceries, a man waiting at a bus stop with a cane in one hand and a pharmacy bag in the other. I wondered if he had to ask someone for that ride too. Martha's office sat between a dentist and a tax preparer in a low brick building with tired carpet and good coffee. She met us at the front, wearing reading glasses on a chain, and the expression of a woman who had already decided politeness would not be enough. "Pablo," she said, touching my arm lightly. "Good to see you." Then she looked at Jonah. "Mr. Sanchez," he smiled. "Jonah is fine." Martha did not say whether it was. We sat across from her desk. She turned her monitor slightly, not all the way yet. "I want to review a few changes on the policy." Jonah leaned forward. "Sure, I can help explain. Dad's still recovering, so some of this—" Martha lifted one finger. Not rude, not soft either. "I'll ask him first." That small sentence did something to me. It gave me back a chair in my own life. Before I tell you what Martha found in that insurance file, let me ask you something. If your child took your truck after rehab and said it was for your safety, would you trust them? And if the bill suddenly exploded days later, would you still call it care? Or would you start asking who really had the keys? Tell me honestly what you would have done. Martha clicked the first tab. Mailing address was changed 3 weeks ago. I frowned. To where? She read it. A mailbox service near Chambly. Jonah said quickly. That was just to make sure notices didn't get missed. I looked at Hamosh. My mailbox is still attached to my house. He did not answer. Martha clicked again. Jonah was added as primary driver. My son cleared his throat. Temporary, since I was holding the truck. Holding it, I repeated. He looked annoyed. Dad. Martha kept reading. Business use exposure was added. I did not know all the words, but I knew enough. In plain English, I said. Martha looked at me. The truck was rated as being used for business activity. I turned to Jonah. His face was calm in the way guilty men practice in mirrors. This is just administrative cleanup, he said. Martha looked over her glasses. Paperwork usually gets cleaner when people tell the truth, not dirtier. The room went quiet. Then she opened another section. There is also a claim flag connected to a warehouse location. My hand tightened on the armrest. Chambly? Martha looked up. Yes. Jonah shifted in his seat. I felt the air change. The cracked tail light, Gloria's call, the missing truck, all of it began standing in the same line. Martha clicked once more. And there is an electronic signature from you, Pablo, authorizing certain changes. I stared at the screen. My name was there, typed neatly, too neatly. Jonah said, Dad gave me permission to help with things. I gave you permission to coordinate rehab appointments. You don't remember every conversation. That was the first time he said it in front of Martha. Not directly, not fully, but enough. The old trick. Turn my question into a symptom. Martha stopped moving. She looked at Jonah, then at me. Mr. Sanchez, she said, did you authorize your son's business to use this truck? Jonah opened his mouth. Martha did not look at him. I asked you. I swallowed. No. The word was small, but it was mine. No, I did not authorize that. Martha nodded once, then opened the warehouse claim. Her face changed again. This time, she did not hide it. She looked at the date, then at another line, then back at me. Pablo, do you have your rehab appointment schedule with you? I can get it from my email. With your permission, I'd like to compare something. Jonah stood halfway. Compare what? Martha did not answer him. I opened my phone with my left hand because my right still got clumsy when I was upset. It took too long. No one helped me. For once, that felt respectful. I found the schedule and handed it to Martha. She read silently. Then she turned the screen toward me. My electronic signature had been recorded at 10:18 in the morning. My rehab check-in that same day was 10:04. Martha's voice lowered. Mr. Sanchez, this says you signed while you were checked in at Rehab. Mr. Sanchez, this says you signed while you were checked in at Rehab. Martha Keene did not say it like an accusation. That made it worse. She said it like a woman reading a weather report after the roof had already blown off. I looked at the time on the screen, 10:18 a.m. Then I looked at my rehab schedule, 10:04 a.m., check-in. At 10:18 that morning, I was not sitting at a computer approving business use on my truck. I was in a therapy room trying to write my own name without my fingers curling like they belonged to someone else. I remembered that morning clearly because I had dropped the pen twice. Wesley Grant had slid it back to me and said, "Again." And I had hated that word, again. After a stroke, that word becomes your whole life. Try again, stand again, speak again, sign again. Now my signature was on a form I had never seen. Jonah leaned forward. That doesn't prove anything. Dad asked me to help with paperwork. I turned to him slowly. Paperwork is one thing. My voice came out rough. My name is another. Martha kept her eyes on the file. Pablo, just so this is clear, I did not pull your medical records. You gave me your rehab schedule, and if we need confirmation from Wesley Grant, we'll ask with your permission. Please do. Jonah's jaw tightened. Dad, this is getting ridiculous. No, Martha said, still calm. It is getting chronological. That was Martha's gift. She did not throw punches. She arranged dates until the truth had nowhere to hide. She clicked into the uploaded document Jonah had mentioned before. This is the medical release. Jonah said, exactly. He signed that so I could help. Martha read it aloud. This release permits limited communication regarding rehab scheduling, therapy coordination, and appointment-related updates. She looked at Jonah. That means appointments, he shifted. I know what it means. No, she said. It does not permit vehicle policy changes, commercial use updates, claim handling, driver classification changes, or title-related inquiries. The air in that office seemed to thin. Title-related inquiries. I heard the words, but I did not understand them at first. Maybe my mind refused to. Martha was still reading. This paper lets you help your father get to therapy. It does not let you drive his life. Jonah's face changed then, just a little. Enough for me to see that he had expected my stroke to make everyone softer around the edges. He had not expected Martha Keene with reading glasses and a timestamp. He said, I was protecting him. I looked at my son. Protection does not need my signature when I am not in the room. He looked away. For years, I had watched families around hospital beds use that same sentence in different clothes. I'm protecting her. I'm deciding for him. He doesn't understand. She's too old. He's too weak. Sometimes it was love. Sometimes it was fear. And sometimes it was control. Wearing both of those things like a borrowed coat. Martha clicked another tab. I'm going to call Carla Baines, the claim adjuster assigned to the warehouse incident. Jonah sat up. Warehouse incident? Martha looked him at us. That is what the file calls it. She dialed. Carla answered with the tired efficiency of a woman who had spent too many years listening to people explain why dents were not their fault. Martha put her on speaker. Carla, this is Martha Keene. I have Pablo Sanchez here, the named insured on the F150 claim. With his permission, I need to confirm a few details. You have my permission, I said. Carla's voice softened slightly. Understood, Mr. Sanchez. Martha asked, claim location? Chambly Warehouse Lot. I felt my stomach tighten. Martha asked, driver listed? Jonah Sanchez. Purpose of vehicle use? Carla paused. The submitted description says personal errand. Martha's eyes sharpened. And your field notes? Carla exhaled through her nose. Truck bed contained delivery straps, 2 oxygen concentrator casings, wheelchair frames, and a disassembled hospital bed rail. Towing invoice lists pickup from Warehouse Bay 3. Nobody spoke. I heard the old hum of Martha's office lights. Jonah rubbed his forehead. It was one delivery. Martha said, "The form says personal errand," he snapped, "because if I put business use, the claim gets complicated." The moment he said it, he knew. So did I. There are confessions that do not sound like confessions because the person speaking is still trying to explain the crime away. I stared at him. "You lied twice," I said. "Once to them, once to me. Dad? No." The word came out stronger than I expected. My right hand was shaking on the armrest, so I placed my left hand over it. Not to hide it, to hold myself steady. "I spent 35 years delivering equipment to help people stand again," I said. "You used my truck to make money while telling me to sit down." Jonah's eyes flashed. "You don't know what I was dealing with." "Then tell me." He opened his mouth, closed it. Martha ended the call with Carla and saved her notes. Then she opened another page. Her face did not change much. But I had learned to read small things, the way her shoulders lowered, the way she stopped breathing for half a second. "Martha," I said. She looked at me. "There is a title transfer inquiry attached to the account." I did not move. Jonah said quickly, "That was just a question." Martha turned the monitor. The screen showed my truck information, my VIN, my name, and a request field asking what documentation would be needed to transfer ownership after medical incapacity. Medical incapacity, not recovery, not evaluation, not temporary limitation. Incapacity. That word made me feel smaller than the stroke ever had. I looked at Jonah. He looked younger suddenly. Not innocent, just younger. A scared boy hiding behind grown man paperwork. Martha spoke carefully. "Pablo, why would your son ask about transferring the title if he was only keeping the truck safe?" "Martha, why would your son ask about transferring the title if he was only keeping the truck safe?" That question followed me home. It sat beside me in Beverly Knox's passenger seat. It followed me through my kitchen. It stood in the empty driveway where my truck should have been. Jonah had left Martha's office angry, not sorry. That told me something. A sorry man lowers his voice. An angry man raises walls. Beverly drove slower than usual. She did not ask too many questions, which was rare for Beverly and probably illegal under her personal code. Finally, she said, "You want me to take you to Chambly?" I looked at her. I didn't ask. "You were going to. I need to know." "No," she said. "You already know. You need to see it so your heart stops arguing with your eyes." That was Beverly. She could make wisdom sound like she was scolding a lunch line. I called Gloria Ruiz first. She answered on the second ring. "You finally ready to look at your truck?" "I am. I'll meet you there." The warehouse sat behind a row of low industrial buildings near Chambly, the kind of place Atlanta hides behind traffic noise and chain-link fences. Nothing dramatic. Just roll-up doors, faded bay numbers, pallets stacked too high, and men walking fast because every hour costs somebody money. Beverly parked across the street. Gloria was already there, standing beside her old sedan with her arms crossed. She pointed without saying hello. Bay 3. And there it was, my dark blue F-150, my cracked left tail light, my dented bumper, my truck. Only it did not look like mine anymore. There were delivery straps in the bed, a folded hospital bed frame leaned against the side. 2 oxygen concentrator casings sat near the tailgate, wrapped in plastic. A crooked temporary decal on the door read, "Peachtree Rehab Resale." For a moment, I could not breathe right, not because of the stroke, because some sights take the air out of a man in a way medicine cannot explain. Gloria stood beside me. "Pablo," she said softly, "I'm sorry." I stared at the truck. "I spent 35 years delivering equipment to help strangers stand again," I said. "Now my own truck is working while I'm being told to sit down." No one answered. There was nothing kind enough to say. Then I saw Mina. She came out of the warehouse holding a clipboard too big for her hands. She looked younger in that place, surrounded by metal rails and stacked boxes, like a child standing inside an adult lie. She saw me, and froze. Grandpa? I tried to smile. It did not arrive. Mina! She looked at the truck, then at me, then toward the warehouse. Dad said you knew. Knew what? Her face changed. That he was using it for a while. He said you signed it because you knew you were done. Done. That word went through me slower than an insult. Insults bounce if you are ready. That one entered. I looked at my granddaughter and said, I had a stroke, Mina. I did not have a funeral. Her eyes filled immediately. I didn't mean, I know. You repeated what you were given. Behind her, Jonah stepped out of Bay 3. His face hardened the moment he saw me. Dad, what are you doing here? I looked at my truck. I could ask you the same thing. His eyes flicked to Beverly, then Gloria, then Mina. He did not like witnesses. People who tell themselves they are doing the right thing usually do not fear witnesses. Jonah walked toward me, lowering his voice like that would make the truth smaller. You shouldn't be out here. This is a work site. My truck seems to have a job here. It was temporary. Everything is temporary when you don't want to admit it has a plan. He clenched his jaw. You don't know what I'm dealing with. Then tell me. He glanced back at the warehouse. That was when a man in a gray polo came out with a tablet in his hand. Lyle Benton. I did not know his name yet, but I knew his type. Landlord. Numbers man. The kind of man who smells late rent before he smells coffee. He looked at Jonah and said, I need that truck back on Friday for the Marietta delivery, or I'm locking the bay until you settle the rent. Jonah's face went white. Lyle looked at me, then at the truck. Is this the owner? No one answered fast enough. That answered for him. He shook his head. I don't care whose truck it is. I care that my rent is 6 weeks late. Mina turned toward Jonah. 6 weeks? Jonah snapped. Go inside. No. It was quiet, but it was no. I had heard that kind of no before. It was the sound of a young person finding the first board in the bridge away from a lie. Jonah looked at me like I had caused it. You happy now? No, I said. I'm standing in front of my stolen truck with my granddaughter crying. Happy is not in the building. He stepped closer. I didn't steal it. You changed the policy. I had to. You filed a claim. It was a scrape. You asked about the title. His eyes flashed. Because I needed to know what would happen if you couldn't manage it anymore. I felt my hand shake. I let it. Some tremors are illness. Some are anger returning to a body that was told to stay quiet. If I couldn't manage it, I said, you should have brought me a doctor's note, not a business plan. Jonah looked away. That was when I saw the plastic bin near the warehouse door. Loose straps, old invoices, a broken phone charger, and something red. I stepped toward it. Jonah said, Dad? I reached into the bin and pulled out Rosa's red Medical Cross keychain. Just the keychain. No keys. The little metal cross was scratched, dirty, and warm from sitting in the sun. For years, that keychain had hung from my ignition. Rosa had clipped it there with her own hands. Now it was lying in a plastic bin beside warehouse trash because it did not fit the story Jonah needed to tell. I closed my fingers around it. When did you take this off? He did not answer. Mina whispered, Dad. Jonah rubbed his face. I didn't want you seeing it on the business keys. The business keys. He said it before he could dress it up. Gloria made a sound under her breath. Beverly looked ready to hit him with her purse, and Beverly carried a purse heavy enough to qualify as equipment. I looked at my son. Not the businessman. Not the frightened caregiver. My son. You did not borrow my truck, I said. You tried to make it stop being mine. His eyes filled, but anger got there first. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted rent overdue and suppliers calling and customers canceling? You were always so proud of helping strangers. Well, I built something too. With my name. With what we had. No, I said. With what you took. The warehouse went quiet around us. Traffic hissed somewhere beyond the fence. Mina wiped her face with her sleeve. I held Rose's keychain in my palm and finally understood the shape of it. Jonah had been scared. Yes. He had been desperate. Yes. But fear and desperation do not become love just because they are wearing family's face. I looked at my truck one more time. The bed full of equipment, the decal on the door, the missing keys, and my wife's keychain in my hand like a small, red witness. I stood outside that warehouse with Rose's keychain in my palm and realized my son had not taken my truck because I was unsafe. He had taken it because he was desperate. I did not sleep much after seeing my truck at that warehouse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rose's red keychain lying in that plastic bin. Not broken, not lost, removed. There is a difference. A thing gets lost by accident. A thing gets removed because someone decides it does not belong anymore. That was what hurt. Not just the truck, not just the insurance bill. It was the quiet little choices my son had made to make my life easier to take apart. The next evening, Jonah came to my house. No call first, no warning. Just headlights in the driveway where my truck used to sit. I was at the kitchen table, trying to eat soup I did not want, when I heard the knock. Beverly had told me not to open the door if I felt tired. Beverly also told me not to argue with grown men after sunset because nothing wise happens when pride and porch lights get involved. I opened it anyway. Jonah stood there holding a folder. Not flowers. Not an apology, a folder. That told me enough. "Dad," he said, "we need to clean this up." I looked past him at the empty driveway. "Funny, I thought you already cleaned me out." His jaw tightened. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, not because I trusted him, because I wanted him to say whatever he had practiced to my face. He walked into my kitchen like he still knew where everything belonged. He put the folder on the table and tapped it twice with his fingers. Insurance forms. Vehicle documents. A printed title transfer application. My name was already typed on the first line. Pablo Sanchez. There I was again. Neat, convenient. Already placed where someone else wanted me. I sat down slowly. "What is this?" Jonah pulled out a chair but did not sit. "The cleanest thing is to put the truck in my name for now." "Cleaner for who?" "For everyone." That word again. Everyone. People use everyone when they do not want to say themselves. He opened the folder and turned one page toward me. "It protects the business from policy problems. It protects you from liability. It keeps things simple until you are stable." Until I was stable. I looked at the paper. "You filled out my name before you asked me my will." His face flushed. "Dad, don't make this dramatic. I did not bring paperwork to dinner. This is not dinner. This is reality." I looked at my bowl of soup. Cold now. A thin skin had formed across the top. That is how fast ordinary life can become evidence. Jonah sat across from me, leaning forward, voice lowered like he was talking to a difficult patient. "You saw the truck. Fine. I should have told you more." "More?" I was under pressure. "So you took my truck." "I used the truck." "You changed my insurance." "I adjusted it." "You signed my name." "I handled paperwork." I laughed once. It sounded ugly in my own kitchen. "You keep changing the words because the truth looks bad in plain clothes." He slapped his palm on the table. Not hard enough to scare me. Hard enough to tell me he wanted to. "You think I wanted this?" he said. "You think I wanted suppliers calling, rent overdue, customers canceling, Mina asking why I'm always angry? Then you should have told me. You had a stroke. Yes. You were dropping cups, forgetting words, walking like the floor was moving under you." "I know what happened to my body." "No," he said. "You know what it felt like from inside. I had to watch it from the outside." That stopped me, because there was pain in it. Real pain. A son seeing his father weakened is still a son seeing the world shift under him. For 1 second, I saw the boy who had held my hand in the hospital. Then he said the next sentence. Stop pretending the rehab gym gave you your old life back." And the boy disappeared. I looked at him. Very quietly, I said, "No, it did not give me my old life back. But it did not give you ownership of the one I have left." He looked away. That meant I had hit something true. He pushed the title paper closer. "Sign it temporarily. We fix the claim. I keep the deliveries going. You don't have to worry about the truck until you pass whatever test they want." "What test?" He blinked. "The driving thing, whatever." "You mean the evaluation?" He shrugged too quickly. That was when the room changed. "You knew about that?" His mouth tightened. "Wesley mentioned something. Wesley told me I was eligible to begin it. You were not cleared to drive." "I did not say I was. You keep acting like a technicality changes the risk. A process is not a technicality." He rubbed his forehead. "Dad, you are not the man who drove routes across Atlanta anymore." That one landed low. He knew it would. I felt my right hand start to tremble. I placed it flat on the table beside the title transfer paper. "No," I said, "but I am still the man who decides what is mine." Before he could answer, we heard a small sound near the hallway. Mina. She stood there in a sweatshirt, eyes wide, backpack over one shoulder. I had not known she came with him. Maybe Jonah had brought her to soften me. Maybe she had refused to wait in the car. Either way, she had heard enough. "Dad," she said, looking at Jonah, "did Grandpa really agree before?" Jonah closed his eyes. "Mina, go wait outside." "No." Her voice shook, but it held. I looked at her. My granddaughter was 16, and already she had been placed in the middle of paperwork, fear, and lies grown men should have kept off her shoulders. Jonah turned toward her. "This is complicated." Mina looked at the folder. "Did he agree?" Jonah did not answer. That silence was louder than any confession. I pushed the title paper back across the table. "I am not signing." Jonah's face hardened. "Fine." He gathered the pages too quickly, edges bending under his fingers. "Let Martha make you feel independent while your truck sits useless." I stood, slowly. The chair scraped behind me. "My truck is not useless, Jonah. You proved that when you used it." He froze. Then he took the folder and walked out. Mina stayed 1 second longer. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she whispered. "You did not write those papers." "But I believed him. You trusted your father." She looked toward the door. "I don't know what that means now." Neither did I, not anymore. After they left, the kitchen felt too quiet. I sat at the table and stared at the place where my name had been typed without my permission. A little while later, my phone rang. Martha. Her voice was softer than usual. "Pablo, Wesley Grant sent the discharge note again. With your permission, I reviewed the referral timing." I closed my eyes. "And? Your son received a copy 3 weeks before the policy changes." I did not speak. Martha continued. "You were not cleared to drive freely, but you were cleared to begin earning it back." My throat tightened. The stroke had taken plenty from me. My son had taken the first step back. Martha's voice softened on the phone. "Pablo, your son knew you had a path back to the driver's seat, and he hid the first step." The next morning, I went back to Martha Keene's office. Not alone this time. Beverly drove me, because my truck was still sitting inside another man's trouble, and my son was still pretending that trouble had my best interest wrapped around it. Martha had asked everyone to come. Jonah arrived first, jaw tight, phone in his hand, wearing the same clean shirt confidence he used when he wanted the room to forget the mess underneath. Mina came with him. She sat near the window and kept her backpack on her lap like she might need to leave quickly. Then Wesley Grant joined us on a video call from the rehab facility. His face filled the laptop screen. Same calm eyes, same quiet discipline. The man had watched me fail to button a shirt without making me feel like a failure. I trusted that more than most paperwork. Martha had already laid folders across her desk. No drama, no raised voice, just paper. That was the frightening part. Paper does not need anger to ruin a lie. Martha began with the discharge note. "Mr. Grant," she said, With Pablo's permission, can you explain the driving recommendation? Wesley nodded. Mr. Sanchez was not cleared to drive freely. Jonah jumped on that like a drowning man grabbing a branch. Exactly. Wesley looked at him through the screen. I was not finished. Jonah leaned back. Wesley continued. He was cleared to begin a formal adaptive driving evaluation. That means supervised testing, reaction assessment, vision screening, possible vehicle adaptation review, and a professional recommendation. It is not a free pass. It is not a permanent denial either. The room went quiet. That quiet felt different from the others. It had a door in it. Martha turned a page. The referral was emailed 3 weeks before the policy changes. Jonah rubbed his thumb along the edge of his phone. Martha looked at him. You received a copy. He said nothing. Mina looked at her father. Dad? Jonah finally spoke. I receive a lot of emails. Martha slid a printed page across the desk. This one was opened. His face changed. Only a little, but enough. Martha tapped the line. 2 hours after it was sent. I looked at Jonah. You knew. He stared at the paper instead of at me. You weren't cleared. No, I said. I was given a path. A risky path. A supervised one. You act like that matters. It mattered to me. The words came out softer than I expected. That made them worse, because grief does not always shout. Sometimes it just tells the truth and lets the room feel the damage. Mina's eyes filled. Dad, you told me Grandpa knew he was done. Jonah closed his eyes. Mina, that is not what I meant. That is what you said. He turned toward her. I was trying to protect him. She looked at me. I could see the question in her face, and it broke my heart that a child had to ask it at all. Grandpa? I took a breath. I had a stroke, Mina. I did not have a funeral. She started crying then, quietly, like she was ashamed to cry in front of all that paper. Jonah's face twisted. For the first time, I saw the fear underneath him. Not the business fear, not the warehouse rent. The other one, the son fear. He looked at me and said, I saw you fall. I said nothing. He kept going. I saw you in that hospital bed. I saw you trying to remember a word you'd said 10,000 times. I saw your hand shaking so bad you couldn't hold a cup. You people see form and dates and referrals. I saw my father almost disappear. That was real. I knew it was. The problem with Jonah was never that every feeling was fake. The problem was that he took one real feeling and used it to justify 10 dishonest choices. I nodded. You were scared. His eyes hardened. Yes. Then say that. I just did. No, I said. Say you were scared. Don't steal from me and call it care. Martha did not interrupt. Wesley did not speak. Even Mina stayed still. Jonah looked like he wanted to argue, but the paper was stronger than his pride now. Martha picked up the medical release. This document allowed limited coordination for therapy scheduling and related communication. She turned it toward Jonah. It did not authorize insurance policy changes, business classification, claim handling, driver priority, or title transfer inquiries. Jonah said, I had access because Dad needed help. Martha nodded once. Yes, illness gave you access. It did not give you ownership. That sentence landed like a gavel. I looked down at my hands, one steady, one not. For weeks, Jonah had used that tremor as proof that I should sit quietly while he decided what was safe, what was simple, what was clean. But my handshaking did not make his signature honest. Martha laid out the timeline, one page at a time. Rehab referral sent. She placed the first page down. Jonah receives and opens the email. Second page. Policy mailing address changed to a Chambly mailbox. Third page. Jonah added as primary driver. Fourth. Business use exposure added. Fifth. Warehouse claim filed. Sixth. Electronic signature recorded while Pablo was checked in at rehab. Seventh. Title transfer inquiry under medical incapacity language. Eighth. The desk looked like a roadmap of betrayal. Not one mistake. Not one panic. A rout. Martha looked at Jonah. This is not one mistake. This is a sequence. Jonah's mouth tightened. He had no clean answer left. So he reached for the dirty one. You spent your life delivering independence to strangers, Dad, he said. When Mom was sick, when I was younger, you still answered work calls. You still ran routes. You still had patience for everyone else. The room shifted. There it was. Old resentment. Not about the truck. Not only. About years. About dinners interrupted. About a boy watching his father carry equipment into strangers' houses and wondering why other people's emergencies got so much of him. I took that in. Because some accusations are not false, just because they are used badly. I was not a perfect father, I said. Jonah looked surprised. I missed things. I gave too much of myself to work. I thought providing proved love better than being present. I was wrong. Mina looked up. Jonah's face softened for half a second. Then I continued. But if I failed you, say that. Don't forge my name, take my truck, and hide my recovery behind your business debt. His softness vanished. But not fully. A crack remained. Martha closed the final folder. Jonah, the claim, the policy changes, and the title inquiry all point back to you. If Pablo chooses to escalate this as fraud, the file is strong enough to support a formal review. Mina whispered, Fraud? Jonah looked at her. That word frightened him more in his daughter's voice than it had in Martha's. I did not enjoy that. Let me be clear. There is no clean happiness in watching your child cornered by the truth. Justice may feel good on the outside. Inside, it still has your child's face. Martha laid the timeline across her desk and said, Jonah, this is not one mistake. This is a sequence, and every line points back to you. Martha laid the timeline across her desk, one page after another. No shouting, no threats, just paper. And somehow, that was worse for Jonah than anger ever could have been. Anger gives a man something to fight. Paper gives him something to answer. Mina stared at the pages like they were written in a language she had trusted her father to translate. Now she understood he had translated it wrong. Jonah stood by the window, jaw tight, eyes red, hands shoved into his pockets like a boy caught breaking something he could not afford to replace. Martha tapped the first page. Original policy, personal use, Pablo Sanchez as named, insured, and owner. She moved to the next. Mailing address changed to Chambly. Then the next. Jonah added as primary driver. Then another. Business use exposure added. She did not look pleased. She looked tired. The way honest people look when dishonesty makes extra work for everyone. Warehouse claim, towing invoice, electronic signature timestamp, rehab attendance record, medical release limitation, driving evaluation referral, title transfer inquiry. She stopped. Then she looked directly at my son. Paperwork has a memory, Jonah. Yours remembers more than you wanted your father to know. Jonah rubbed both hands over his face. I was going to fix it. I looked at him. You were going to fix it after it fixed your business. He flinched. Good. Some sentences should hurt. Carla Baines had joined by phone again, and her voice came through the speaker, dry and careful. The claim will need review under possible business use misrepresentation. Coverage handling may change based on the updated facts. Jonah closed his eyes. Martha continued. Effective immediately, I can request correction of the policy record. Jonah removed from driver priority. Business use classification suspended pending review. Title transfer inquiry flagged and canceled. Medical release note corrected to show no authority for insurance or ownership decisions. She turned to me. Pablo, if you want to escalate this formally, the file is strong. The room went quiet. Mina looked at me. Jonah did not. That was the first time power sat in front of me since the stroke. Real power. The kind that could punish. The kind that could make my son feel what helplessness tasted like. For a moment, I understood why people swing hard when truth finally hands them a weapon. But Rose's keychain was in my palm, the red cross pressed against my skin. I thought of her voice. Help is when someone holds your arm. Control is when they decide where you're allowed to walk. I did not want control, not even over the man who had tried to take mine. I am not sending my son to jail today, I said. Jonah looked up. But I am not letting him drive my life anymore. His face fell in a way I cannot explain. Not relief, not exactly. More like he had expected mercy to be soft, and instead found it had walls. I turned to him. You will repay the premium increase, the deductible, and every fee tied to what you changed. He nodded once. You will not use my truck, my insurance, my medical release, my name, or my signature for your business again. Another nod, slower. You will bring back every document connected to the title. Copies, too. I will. And you will tell Mina the truth. He froze. Mina looked at him. That was the hardest condition. Not the money, not the policy. The truth in front of his daughter. Jonah's mouth opened, but no words came. I waited. Martha waited. Wesley watched from the laptop screen, silent and steady. Finally, Jonah turned to Mina. Mina, I lied to you. Her eyes filled again, but she did not look away. I told you your grandfather gave me the truck because he knew he was done. That wasn't true. His voice broke on the last word. I used it for the business. I changed the insurance. I hid the driving evaluation referral because if he got a path back, I lost the truck. Mina whispered. And the business? Jonah nodded. And the business. She wiped her face with her sleeve. You made me think Grandpa gave up. Jonah looked smaller than I had ever seen him. I know. No, I said quietly. Tell her the rest. He looked at me, ashamed now. Real shame. Not the kind that fears consequences. The kind that finally sees the person it hurt. I was scared, he said. Then I got desperate. Then I got dishonest. That was the first sentence he had said in the right order. I did not forgive him in that moment. Do not let anyone tell you forgiveness works like a light switch. Sometimes it is more like rehab. Slow, painful, full of small motions nobody claps for. Martha reached into a small envelope. She placed my truck keys on the desk. Beside them was Rosa's red medical cross keychain. For a second, I could not touch them. Those keys were not proof I could drive anywhere I wanted. They were proof I still had the right to decide where I was going. I picked them up with my left hand first. Then I made my right hand help. It shook. I let it. Jonah watched. Mina watched. Martha watched. And nobody reached over to steady me. That was respect. Martha said, we can restore the policy to personal use pending the claim review. But Pablo, you know what I'm going to ask. I nodded. I know. Wesley leaned closer to the camera. The evaluation is still the right next step. I agree. Jonah looked surprised. Maybe he thought getting the keys back meant I would prove something by driving away that minute. I was old enough to know better. Truth had given me back the choice. It had not erased the stroke. Martha, I said, schedule the driving evaluation. She softened. For when? The first safe opening. For the first time since rehab, the road ahead did not feel stolen. It did not feel easy either. But it belonged to process, not permission. I looked at the keys in my palm and told Martha, schedule the driving evaluation. For the first time since the stroke, the road ahead belonged to process, not permission. I did not drive home from Martha's office that day. That matters. Getting the keys back did not mean I was ready to turn onto Atlanta traffic and pretend my body had not changed. The stroke was real. My hand was still unsteady some mornings. My reaction time still needed testing. And pride, if you let it sit behind the wheel too soon, can become just as dangerous as fear. So Beverly drove me home. She glanced at the keys in my lap and said, you look like a man holding a winning lottery ticket he is too tired to cash. I smiled. A little? No shame in tired, she said. She was right. There was no shame in limits when they came from truth. A limit given by truth feels different from a cage built by fear. The consequences came slowly. Martha corrected the policy. Jonah was removed from every driver and business use connection tied to my truck. The title inquiry was canceled. The medical release was rewritten so clearly that even a desperate man could not bend it into permission. Peachtree Rehab Resale lost the use of my F-150. Jonah had to rent a delivery van at rates he hated, and one contract slipped away because he could not move equipment on time. He signed a repayment plan for the premium increase, fees, and claim costs connected to what he had done. Not all at once, month by month. That was good. Some lessons should not be paid off too quickly. Mina came over the following Sunday. She brought no cookies this time, just herself. She sat at my kitchen table and looked at the spot where Jonah had pushed that title paper toward me. "I'm sorry I believed him," she said. I poured her sweet tea. "You trusted your father. That is not a crime." But I repeated it. I sat across from her. "Then learn from that. Love people, but don't let love make you allergic to facts." She nodded. Then she said something I still remember. "I want to learn how not to repeat a lie just because I love the person who told it." That girl gave me more hope than any apology did. The driving evaluation came 2 weeks later. It was not cinematic. No Sunrise Highway, no triumphant music. Just reaction tests, vision checks, steering control, brake response, parking cones, and Wesley Grant sitting beside me with that calm face of his. At the end, he said I could drive again with limits, daytime, local routes, no highway yet, follow-up review in 60 days. I should have felt insulted. I did not. Because this time, the limit came from a professional process, not from my son's fear, debt, or forged paperwork. For the first time since the stroke, I felt measured instead of managed. That is a powerful difference. Jonah did not become honest in one afternoon. He became exposed. Honesty came later, one payment and one uncomfortable sentence at a time. One evening, he came by with Mina. He did not ask for keys. He did not mention the truck. He stood in my kitchen and said, "Dad, I was scared. Then I got desperate. Then I got dishonest." I looked at him for a long moment. "That is the first sentence you have said in the right order." We did not hug, not that day. But we drank coffee. Sometimes that is where repair starts, not with forgiveness, with two people sitting at the same table without lying. The first place I drove alone was not far, just to Martha's office. I brought her a thank you card and a box of pastries Beverly insisted were too good for insurance people but acceptable for justice. Martha laughed. Then she helped me with the paperwork for something new. The Rosa Sanchez Mobility Fund. It started small, a few donations, some repayment money from Jonah. Gloria Ruiz made calls. Wesley connected us with rehab patients. Beverly volunteered rides and complained loudly enough to be useful. The fund helped people pay for adaptive driving evaluations, medical transportation, vehicle modification advice, and workshops for families who did not understand the difference between helping and taking over. At the first workshop, I told them what Rosa used to say. Help is when someone holds your arm. Control is when they decide where you're allowed to walk. I still believe that. My son took my truck because he thought my stroke had made me smaller. The paper trail proved he was the one who had shrunk. But the road back was never about punishing him. It was about making sure no one could call control care and get away with it again. The truck sits in my driveway now. Same cracked taillight, same old seat. Rosa's red Medical Cross keychain hangs from the ignition again. I do not drive every day. I do not drive at night. And I do not pretend recovery means returning to who I was. Recovery means being allowed to become who you still can be. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and for listening to this memory all the way through. Please tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and what time it is where you live right now. If this story moved you even a little, please don't forget to subscribe to Final Act Revenge. Another story is waiting for you on your screen right now. YouTube believes you may enjoy it.